Distinguished Governor, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. At the time when COP15 is held in China, in Kunming, and the ADB, along with Chinese Academy of Science, as well as RCES and the CAEP, we organized this subforum. On behalf of the organizers, I'd like to extend my welcome to all of you and congratulations on the opening of this forum. As President Xi mentioned that the lucid water and green mountains are invaluable, and all of the resources in the nature formed a network to provide us with the necessary resources for us to live on, for our livelihood as well as our existence. And it carries invaluable values that can be beneficial to the people. Capital accounting is a forefront study that started since the last century's 90s and gathered wisdoms from scientists and experts from statistics studies and science and other areas. The UN also started with its various agencies, developed a framework, and the World Bank, ADB, and other organizations, including IOC, have already participated in the formulating and the practices of natural capital accounting in order to ensure sustainable supply of natural resources and supply. When we guided by the principle of lucid water and green mountains are invaluable asset, we take this as an important method and carried out researches and exploration. Today, we are very happy to have expertise in this area and leaders from relevant institutes, NDRC and the Ministry of Ecology and Environment, as well as the Ministry of Natural Resources, including ADB and IDB. Just to name a few, they will be here to share their outcomes and results, and as well as some demonstration pilot regions and counties will make reports of their progresses and outcomes. I believe with all of this forum will make its effort and contribution to the building of natural capital accounting system. First of all, let's welcome our Vice Governor of Yunnan, Mr. Ying Hao, to give us a speech. Distinguished Mr. Carlos Manuel Rodriguez, CEO and Chairman of Global Environment Facility, and Mr. Silendora, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, good morning. It's my honor to be convened here and gathered here in the beautiful city of Yunnan, Kunming, to talk about natural capital accounting and ecological product value realization, delegated by Mr. Ran Chenfa, the Secretary of the party, as well as our Governor. I'd like to extend my gratitude to all of the parties and departments of our support and their understanding, and to all of the expertise and friends, to welcome you all to Kunming. Natural capital accounting is an important tool and a foundation for sustainably utilize natural resources. It's an important way to benefit the people, to sustain the development of people and our society. This will become our theme of this forum, which demonstrates the organizer, as well as international institutions and experts, representing their concerns and the importance they attach to this topic and theme. It's a place for us to gather wisdom and gather our expertise to improve our governance and to support the green transformation of economic and social transformation, to support and ensure biological protection and ensure we have realized the vision of man-nature in harmony. Since the 18th Central Parties Committee, we fully adhere to President Xi's thoughts on ecological civilization and based on the thoughts and the speeches spirit President Xi made during his 2 visits to Yunnan, and to put green development in the center, to create a green product, green lifestyle, and a green destination, to ensure that the economic development would be alongside with biological conservation, to ensure we still have a beautiful city and environment while the economic development is making progress. In terms of decision-making in natural capital accounting and GEP and the product value realization, we have carried out exploration and practices to improve while improving the compensation system and other facilities. We have helped Yunnan to make the transformation and lay the foundation for future development. In terms of natural capital accounting and product value realization, we have gathered experiences. Lucid mountains and the green waters are our assets. Protecting the ecological environment is to ensure our productivity. It's a complicated system related to different areas of science, progresses, and advancement. It cannot be solved with just one solution. And with the revolution of natural capital accounting, we could gradually create a complete system to support ecological civilization. It's an important and an essential method to ensure nature live in harmony. And we are also exploring other financial tools and methods to realize this purpose, to establish a monitoring and evaluation system to ensure the guarantee of this course so that we could maximize its benefit. The Party Committee of Yunnan and the Yunnan government will continue to carry out our effort under the guidance of President Xi's thoughts and to safeguard our invaluable natural resources, to ensure the product value will be realized and be appreciated, to ensure to support the natural capital, to ensure that we will make Yunnan's contribution and Yunnan's wisdom and solution. I wish to continue to receive support from you all, and we welcome scientists and business people and entrepreneurs to participate in this course and to make our effort to create a shared future for mankind. Lastly but not least, I would like to wish a complete success of this forum and wish you a great stay in Yunnan and Kunming. Have a great time here. Thank you. I'm very happy and honored to introduce and welcome the CEO and the Chairperson of Global Environment Facilities. Let's welcome Mr. Carlos Manuel Rodriguez. He will join us online.
the organizers for inviting me to share a few words on this very important and interesting topic of natural capital accounting. Those gathered here today are some of the best minds and most innovative practitioners to be tackling this important agenda, which is natural capital accounting and ecological product value realization. And your work couldn't be more timely or critical in nowadays. How we measure and value and use nature as a global society over the coming decades will either result in a healthy, prosperous future for all life on Earth, or a planet that is increasingly complicated and uninhabitable. A healthy environment is the basis of human life. This foundation is facing multiple severe threats, and we're feeling the symptoms of these discord. Intensifying climate change related events, COVID-19 pandemic, plastic pollution, the destruction of natural ecosystems, and the imbalance with nature. It is extremely clear that the production and consumption systems is having a big toll on nature and on the life supporting system of this planet. So, environmental degradation cannot be addressed separately from social and economic aspirations. To ensure a viable future for humanity, we need to change how we produce and consume food and energy, how we build infrastructure in cities, how we value nature. Without urgent and coordinated action, environmental threats will intensify and harm human development, livelihoods, and justice in the near term. So we are in this inflection point on the eve of both the climate COP26 and this the biodiversity COP15. That the next decade is our best last chance to bend the curve, and we almost take bold and ambitious actions, all and together. To this end, the Global Environment Facility vision for the next decade is to halt nature loss and to ensure that the world becomes carbon neutral, nature positive, and pollution free in the next decades. In this, we recognize the strong dependency of human health and well-being of society on a healthy planet. The next two GEF investment rounds, 2022 all the way to 2030, will be critical to the achievement of global environmental ambitions and needs over the coming decade, with a focus on system change and environmental restoration at scale. Actually, the GEF 8 strategy that we launched recently will focus on the transformation of major economic systems: food, urban, energy, health, so we can realize the vision and work with governments, private sector, civil society, and other stakeholders to ensure these transitions, which should be just, equitable, innovative, and resilient. Achieving this vision and ambitious targets set out by the Paris Agreement and the Global Biodiversity Framework will require not only commitment and ambition, but also financial resources, sufficient financial resources from all sources: ODA, private, public expenditures. All of them are essential in closing the nature financial gap to realize the ambitious goals and targets forthcoming from the climate and biodiversity COPs and the GEF 8 and 9 vision. Therefore, a major focus in the next GEF funding cycle will be concentrating on supporting countries generate more policy coherence to ensure public resources are contributing to this vision rather than subsiding destruction. This will require addressing institutional failures and breaking down silos between government ministries and between industrial sectors to ensure investments in nature are not counteracted by decisions and activities that result in further destruction. Destruction of natural ecosystems, economic activities that contribute to climate change and pollution. So we must stop punching holes in our lifeboat with destructive and contradictory policies and actions in the name of development. A shift to policy and institutional coherence is urgent with the necessary political will that can stop the destruction in nature and increase domestic financing for conservation and the positive impact of our actions. The right tools, policies, and commitments to value and account for nature in economic systems and development decision making must be in place to support this transition. Natural capital assessment and accounting will play an important role in this, and I'm heartened by the conversation on this topic that will take place during this forum. Finally, I want to say that the GF, along with the Green Climate Fund and others, is glad to be a startup partner of the Regional Natural Capital Lab that will be launched today. We are also partnering with the Asian Development Bank and NRDC on a new project aimed at innovative eco-compensation in the Yangtze River Basin. GF has a long history of supporting innovative payments for environmental services globally. As you know, PS is near and dear to my heart for the work that I did as a former minister in Costa Rica, helping the country revert the rate of deforestation. The use of this economic, financial-oriented tool helped Costa Rica double the size of the forest at the same time that the economy tripled in their size. So we look forward to a significant result and groundbreaking innovation out of these investments and these forums. With this, I wish you the best luck in your discussions today, and thank you for the chance to kick off the forum. Thank you so much.
Now let's welcome Director of the Department of Ecological Restoration from the Ministry of Natural Resources. Let's welcome Mr. Zhao Yanbo. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. After the 19th meeting and surrounded with President Xi at its call, we had the party committee has put sustainable development as the core for the development of China, and it has been incorporated into all rounds and every corner of the policies making. Carrying out natural capital accounting and ecological product value realization is an important step to implement President Xi's thoughts, and it's a very important essential path to realize to protect our lucid water and green mountain and our assets. It's an important prerequisite for green transformation. President Xi pointed out that natural ecology has its value, and protecting the nature is a way to appreciate its value and to ensure the productivity. We would receive duly return and benefit. In his keynote speech on October the 12th, he stressed again and he reiterated the idea of lucid water and green mountain. These are not just natural resources, but economic resources. We need to establish circular economy and green and low carbon economy to turn the ecological benefit and advantages into economic advantages. In this April, the State Council and the central government published guidelines on establishing capital realization value and set goals for 2030 and 2050. And it calls for participation of public and private businesses and to establish a viable pathway for the transformation and to complete and create the system for green transformation so that we can establish a Chinese method and solution for the transformation. Natural resources is the foundation for the Green Mountain and the Gold Mountain, and it provides guarantee for that purpose. The Ministry of Natural Resources has accountability in this course, and we have been carrying out our exploration and the trials and the survey in this area. We have already found necessary and sufficient resources and data to support our analysis.
And play a leader role for the government in resource allocation and scientifically promote permanent farmland and conduct restoration in ecology and set up 3 red lines for ecology and formulate regulations on management and install and restoration degree and defend the barriers for ecology and turn the foundation for the 2 mountains and enhance the theory foundation. Then how to use natural capital accounting to realize ecological product value realization is a critical problem for the globe. We require theory, innovation, as well as practice and technology support. Our research center has a very strong theory foundation as well as rich in experience. Through today's forum, all experts, scholars, professionals can conduct diverse discussion, share your insights in this aspect, and conduct natural capital accounting, ecological product value realization, and make contribution to the green is gold theory. And I wish you great success on the forum. Thank you very much. Now, let's welcome Vice President, Asian Development Bank, to deliver his speech.
The Asian Development Bank, I would like to thank the Ministry of Ecology and Environment of the People's Republic of China, the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity, and the Yunnan Provincial Government for helping organize and host this event. The Ecological Civilization Forums offers an opportunity to break new ground in stopping and reversing the rapid decline in biodiversity and the ecosystem that are our natural capital. Natural capital is critical to our existence. We must value nature with all its complexity and diversity as the foundation of all human activity. Nature is vitally important to our health and wealth. It helps us adapt to and mitigate climate change. It also serves as a buffer against future pandemics. We still struggle to highlight the role nature plays in crafting our development and investment agendas. One reason is that we do not sufficiently value what natural capital contributes to our economies. We tend to undervalue nature and leave it out of economic and financial decision making. We must integrate and price nature into development planning, policy making, financial reform, investment planning, and knowledge generations. We need to elevate nature into our decision-making process. Taking a nature-positive approach, we include nature-related risk when making management and investment decisions. This will ensure we avoid or minimize negative effects and help restore and expand natural capital. This morning agenda focuses on how we can support the transitions to nature-positive investments. It explores the complexities of natural capital accounting, looking for innovative ways to value nature as we continue to seek a green, nature-positive, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable economic recovery. ADB has grown to become the region's premier development bank in the 55 years since its founding. It is also a knowledge bank, Asia and the Pacific's climate bank, and is also becoming the green bank. I'm happy to share with you today what we have done to accelerate and increase nature-positive investments. We have established a Regional Natural Capital Lab, or NCL. The NCL helps our developing members value natural capital, strengthen regulatory framework, and apply innovative financing to support nature-positive investments. An example is our innovative natural capital financing facility. It will help make nature-reliant food systems more resilient and sustainable over the long term. It will also support our oceans through investment in sustainable tourism and fisheries. It will protect and restore vital ecosystems, and it will support the regional flyway initiative, protect wildlife habitats, maintain ecosystem services, and provide livelihood for more than 50 million people. We all know about GDP, but today we deal with GEP, or Gross Ecosystem Product, a Nature Service Valuation Index. ADB was the first multilateral development bank to support GEP, piloted together with the People's Republic of China through several local governments. We will hear about GEP's success in Colombia and other places today. We will also discuss knowledge solutions, highlighting the tools that evolve from our joint effort with partners to give nature its true value. We will also discuss how to refine and mainstream these tools into real everyday life. Today, we launched an ADB publication on greening development in the People's Republic of China. The report explains how we have successfully partnered with the People's Republic of China to promote green development and restore ecosystems so they complement economic and social priorities. I want to thank our speakers, panelists, and partners who co-organized this thematic forum. I look forward to discussions on nature-based financing and nature-positive investments. Together, we can move forward to a nature-friendly, prosperous future. Thank you very much.
Distinguished participants, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning here in Kunming. Welcome to the session on natural capital and natural investment transformation. My name is Yolanda Fernandez Lomen, and I am ADB's Country Director in the People's Republic of China. I am delighted to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Qinfeng Chang, ADB's Chief of the Rural Development and Food Security Thematic Group, concurrently Chief of the Environment Thematic Group, who is joining us virtually and will be speaking about nature-positive investments and the Regional Natural Capital Lab in Asia Pacific. Qinfeng, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. Can you hear me? Thank you so much. If I may probably ask Yue to help me to upload my slides. I'm very happy to join my colleague, Greg Watson, my friend from the Inter-American Bank, to discuss how to mainstream the electro capital in the MDB's operations. And also we are going to compare the loads about the electro capital in these two important organizations. Different from the Inter-American Bank DMCs, Asia-Pacific region has the richest biodiversity in the world. It's a home to nearly 17 out of 66 of the world's biodiversity hotspots. But at the same time, Asia was also a home to the largest number of the poor people in the world. We still have 1.2 billion people living in the poverty line. To protect the nature and also support their livelihood in Asia. Today's topic, natural capital accounting and the ecological product value realization, is extremely important and also very essential and also timely. Next slide. So as you can see from this slide, 72% of their losses in nature comes from their three systems: food, land, and ocean use. Food system is one of the key driver of the biodiversity loss and also the natural degradations. But food system, unsustainable agri-food system versus natural loss, just like the fossil fuel versus climate change. Where we can just phase out our investment in the fossil fuel, but it's not possible to eliminate our investment in the food system. What we can do is to transform our agri-food system. This is very important for us to attach the monetary value to nature and also incentivize farmers to change their behavior to protect the ecosystem in their farming practices. IDB is now scaling up our natural capital investments through their adopting natural capital accounting, strengthening their DMC's capacity, and also their increasing natural positive investments, particularly in their food and agricultural sector. Next slide. As Dr. Gupta has rightly said, sustainable economics means using the different measures to GDP. He also said, COVID-19 has shown us what can happen if we don't do this. IDB and the PRC's National Development Reform Commission launched the study on a gross ecosystem product accounting in 2014. GEP was originally designed as a tool to measure the impact of the eco-compensation programs and also the performance of the local cities and the governments. For that particular study, Guizhou, Yunnan, Ningxia provinces were selected to the case study. Through their good design and also the data collections from our ecological monitoring, GEP were designed could track the performance of the local government policies and also monitor the financial compensation. GEP has also helped to measure the contribution of the ecosystems to economy and also society. In the session 2, a number of their counties and also the cities, they're going to share their key lessons and also the way forward. Next slide. Oh, yeah, stay with this one. Since the 2020, through the cooperation with the Stanford University, Chinese Academy of the Science, and also the Chinese Academy of the Environmental Planning, we have made the significant progress. A key enabler, of course, is the UN adoption of the system of the environmental economic accounting as an international standard. This framework also recognizes GEP as an aggregating indicator. GEP now widely piloted over 100 counties in the PRC. It has also been replicated in Colombia, particularly thanks to the Greg, our friend from the Inter-American Bank for that exercise. But sometimes from the IDB end, right now our DMCs like the Sri Lanka, Mongolia, and also Cambodia, they also indicate their strong interest for this GEP accounting pilot. Next slide. So based on our experiences in GEP and also eco-compensation, IDB is now establishing a regional natural capital lab. This is a regional digital platform as a testbed to integrate natural positive solutions to IDB's project design. This also includes the 4 key elements: natural capital accounting, regulatory reform. This regulatory reform, we're going to have the DMCs shift away from the harmful subsidy to payments for environmental services. And we're also going to catalyze sustainable finance through the blended financing, combine the grants from the GF, for example, and also the IDB lending. At the same time, we also use this opportunity to build their capacity, knowledge, and also the partnership. Most importantly, data information technologies also the key elements for our access. Next slide. So in Asia Pacific, particularly in the last 2 years, many of the DMCs now recognize natural capital approach is a key to support their green rural recovery and also resilience. Now, IDB is now designing the innovative natural capital financing facility to enhance our capacity, DMC's capacity to catalyze natural capital investment and also they provide knowledge solutions. This facility comprises 3 pillars: natural capital lab that I just described, and the agribusiness service platform, or we call it the ASP, and also the natural capital fund. ASP is going to help to digitalize agricultural value chains and also support project sponsors improving the green value chain through the market linkage. The fund itself going to co-finance IDB projects and also the other partners project to convert ecosystem value or the assets into the revenue model of the agribusiness. Next slide. So I'm going to end my presentation by citing 3 key examples that part of this lab and also the financing facility. The first one is the Anhui Huangshan project. This project now provides a model to support the small and medium-sized enterprises involved in green agribusiness, such as ecological agriculture, ecotourism, and also the pollution control. This project shows how we can blend the IDB financing with the eco-compensation grant to help to transform the agri-food system. At the same time, we use this grant to incentivize small farmers' behavior change to reduce the chemical use. And now this project has been also selected as a candidate project for the IDB's first blue bond investment. Second example I want to share here is a project from the Cambodia. IDB is now investing in the coastal and also marine fishery to build the better ecosystem management and the monitoring, and also the sustainable fishery value chains, and increase the access to finance. This is a part of our ocean health and also the food system transformation as well. Finally, in Mongolia, together with the European Investment Bank and the Global Climate Fund, we are now designing a 750 million green development program working on a pastoral rehabilitation, which is going to have the many benefits for the ecosystem rehabilitation, enhances the carbon sequestration, and also the protect the incomes from the herder household. We're going to support the herders and also the communities for their sustainable cashmere product, which will target their market in the European and also the PRC. So for this Mongolia project, their natural capital accounting is also one of the essential elements. So probably let me just stop here. We can hear more experiences from my friend, Greg Watson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yingfeng, for the excellent presentation. The next speaker is Mr. Gregory Watson, head of the Natural Capital Lab at the Inter-American Development Bank, who is going to share key lessons from his work on this very important topic. Gregory, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, and I hope you're hearing me okay. And thank you, Yingfeng, so much for inviting me to speak today. It's a pleasure to see a vision where our visions are so aligned. It's wonderful to see. Perhaps my slides could be projected. What I was hoping to do today was to share a little bit about what we've learned so far with our Natural Capital Lab, which began in 2018. And so if we could start with the next slide, perhaps. We could go to the next slide. I only show this slide, and it's very complicated, just to illustrate what I hope will happen for you as well at Asian Development Bank, which is, if you look here, since 2018, you can see a very rapid acceleration from 2018 to now, both in terms of funds that we've been leveraging towards this topic, but also something very interesting has happened at the IDB. Because our thesis has been at the beginning was very similar to what you've just laid out, which was providing different kinds of investment capital, different kinds of advisory services. And what we've seen is that in the years since we've started to do that, we've actually seen a large demand now also to move into mainstreaming within our own institution and also within countries. And so that this work has actually generated a new pillar of our Natural Capital Lab, which is very much focused on that mainstreaming agenda internally and in the countries themselves. And so I think that this has been instrumental in moving our bank in an additional direction on this topic over the past several years. We could go to the next slide. And this is our approach now. We have a very integrated approach, which is, as I said, mainstreaming in the bank and in the countries, innovative finance in tools and knowledge. And this is all based on our thesis of having good value cases, leading by influence from the Natural Capital Lab. That means working with the sectors and with the countries by showing pilots that are really pilots of excellence, or programmatic approaches in geographies, or models of financing or business models that really are influential. And we say, serving as a Rosetta Stone, our team is the link between the scientific community, the engineering community, the finance community, our project specialists, and helping them all integrate with each other in order to move projects and to move the agenda forward. And that's really how we've found our niche in the institution. If we could go to the next slide. So in terms of mainstreaming in the bank, what have we started to learn has been very important. One has been using all of this momentum to lead to actually developing a natural capital and biodiversity mainstreaming action plan to be approved by our board and solidifying this in some sort of internal mandate. Also, very importantly, to begin working with our country strategy process at the very beginning of the process. And so working at the earliest stages to integrate biodiversity and nature-based solutions across all sectors in those dialogues. We're working with your team and others on tracking methodologies, but also developing the capacity of our teams across the bank, creating training methodologies from the Natural Capital Lab, providing that technical expertise, and working with first mover sectors in order to integrate into things such as a policy-based loan that we had in Costa Rica, and also in blue economy projects where we can make sure that we're bringing cutting edge projects into those larger integrated approaches. If we could go to the next slide. And then in the countries, it's exactly what you were just mentioning. Working to develop, for example, COVID recovery strategies that are based on nature-based solutions, or working on integrated finance strategies, or as you mentioned in Colombia, supporting the gross ecosystem product work, or actually embedding staff in ministries of finance or in ministries of planning and paying for that from our own technical assistance funds so that those people take on that job of mainstreaming inside the government themselves. And then providing some financial support to early stage feasibility studies, proof of concept has been key, because when we first started, we funded a lot of these. We said it was kind of planting 1,000 flowers to see which ones would grow. And as they began to grow with different sectors and with different countries and with different approaches, we were able to focus on the ones that were providing the most impact. And that's what really allowed us to have the institutional mandate to move forward with this broader integration and mainstreaming. If we could go to the next slide. And then in terms of knowledge and tools, we have found that it's important to make these systemic. So creating guidelines for nature-based solutions for our teams, creating finance guides on nature-based solutions, creating technology platforms that link investors to projects for our region, creating toolkits for our urban development colleagues as to how to integrate these solutions into cities projects, and those kinds of things, and also the whole knowledge agenda. So we found that that's been vitally important, and working with best-in-class experts to develop some of these. We actually worked with Nat Cap on several of these, and from Stanford. We can go to the next slide. And on innovative finance, if I had one message that's been most important there, it's been to work across the entire financial scale. So providing financing and the right kind of financing to early stage entrepreneurs and creating those vehicles, working with our capital markets teams and our structured finance teams that work with national development banks to create those special purpose vehicles that can pick up those businesses and those initiatives at the same time. And then also working with our equity teams to develop equity products at the same time, and making sure we're touching all of the different parts of the market at the same time, so that we're not having gaps where there's a missing piece of the equation, and that's been very important. If we could go to the next slide. And then something that we were inspired actually by the Asian Development Bank in our Amazon initiative, which we recently launched. We were inspired by your Yangtze initiative to take a geographic approach, because where we could actually focus all of this attention in one geography, we were able to make those links in such a way that the narrative and the sum of the whole is much larger than the individual pieces. And that also has provided us the opportunity to not only link individual projects, private and public actors, but also to link the different sectors and the different management pieces of the bank in a way that has created much more drive for this work internally and much more buy-in for this work internally. If we could go to the next slide. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the next three, but I have these models, and hopefully later maybe you can go back to these slides. But where we've worked on early stage equity, we've provided these kind of first loss funds to special purpose vehicles alongside technical assistance to provide real risk capital. And we found that's the best way for us to approach the really early stage of the market. Next slide, please. And then if you look at what we've just presented with the GCF and approved for the Amazon, working with these national development banks, we've had a similar approach working with special purpose vehicles with national development banks, providing concessional loans or guarantees to create investment facilities for bioeconomy, where our funds are maybe better used in that to provide leverage to a loan from the ordinary capital of the bank to that development bank, where we're able to crowd in public and private capital into the same vehicle. And then if we go to the next slide, I'm almost done. We've also experimented with creating this new model of natural asset companies to be able to trade natural capital on stock exchanges, and that recently was launched with the New York Stock Exchange. And that's another way that we're trying to experiment with these kinds of models. And then if you go to I think I have one more slide, which are the lessons learned. If we could go to the next one. Yeah, so this is my last slide, I think, or second to last. So basically what we've learned is that starting with these early pilots in concessional finance and working with early adopters has really led us to be able to find those senior management champions, which has then led to this institutionalization of the action plans and the country strategies and become a core part of our strategy. And the early integration has been key. And that it's not enough for us just to develop these specific green products, but we need to have this holistic approach, which has then pulled in other teams and other actors in our institution. Having this embedding of experienced personnel within ministries and within ministries of planning and finance has been very important and a really good use of small parts of our funding relatively. And that this blended finance is important, but the technical assistance that goes alongside of it is also vital. And then I think I have one last slide here, which is where we're going in the future. We get to go to that. And so we agree with the new targets that we expect to come from COP15 and also from COP26 with the Nature Day. And this joint statement on nature, planet, and people, that Asian Development Bank has been a core partner with us in moving that forward. I think that's going to create a lot of momentum, as does TNFD and updates to national biodiversity strategies that I think we'll see coming out of COP15. I think improving the way we communicate about these things, as we're all doing every day, is helping with the different parts of our audiences. Tracking, as we all are working together now in our working groups on how we can tag biodiversity investment. If we don't count it, it doesn't really count, so that will help. I mentioned the MDB pledge. And this country and sector integration in our institution is very important. And as that continues to move forward, I think that only helps us. And we're entering a capital increase discussion, and this work now has actually really made biodiversity and natural capital become a core part of that capitalization and mobilization strategy of our capital increase, which I think shows how this, what started with an experiment, has now really become mainstream in our institution. So I hope that those lessons are useful to you as you move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for sharing these useful and inspiring lessons. We are now moving on to the second part of the session, which is the dialogue. And we are honored by the participation of 5 distinguished speakers that will discuss the importance of the Natural Capital Lab and how this initiative can influence decisions on nature-based investments. Time is very tight, and each speaker sadly has only 4 minutes. So please, in the interest of time, I must kindly ask all of you to deliver your comments and views within the allocated time. With no further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Gretchen Daly. She's the founder and director of the National Capital Project at the Stanford University, to start the dialogue. You have the floor, Dr. Daly. We cannot hear you. I think we have some issues. If you don't mind, I will invite Dr. Polanski to go first, and hopefully the IT issues can be resolved. Okay. So may I now request Dr. Stefan Polanski, Regents Professor and Fessler Lamper Professor of Ecological and Environmental Economics at the University of Minnesota, to take the floor.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. It's wonderful to talk in this session with several close colleagues on this incredibly important topic of incorporating or mainstreaming the value of nature. It's wonderful to hear how much the Asian Development Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank are doing on this important topic. And also, I'd like to mention the leadership of China in pushing forward the gross ecosystem product and in general methods to do natural capital accounting. There are really two important tasks in doing natural capital accounting. One is measuring the values of nature. How does nature contribute to the economy and to human well-being? Traditional economic accounts leave out important aspects of the value of nature. So incorporating these values is incredibly important. And then the second part of this is tying those values into incentives and prices, basically mainstreaming the value of nature. I'd like to briefly mention 3 projects that we in the Natural Capital Project have worked on, along with colleagues at the World Bank and with the Chinese Academy of Sciences. All 3 projects build on the same base. They all quantify ecosystem services, show how ecosystem services change when we change ecosystems. So for example, if land use changes or water use changes, how does that cause a change in the provision of ecosystem services, such as water quality or pollination or carbon or biodiversity preservation? And then the second pillar is, again, the value of these ecosystem services. So whether we show the impact that this has on agricultural productivity or on health or on putting these into monetary terms. So all of these projects both quantify ecosystem services and then value them. So the first, we've already heard, the first project is GEP, or Gross Ecosystem Product, which measures the contribution of nature and valued in monetary terms. We have worked very closely with colleagues in China to develop this application and showing how to do this at the provincial level and at local levels. And I'm very excited to see how this unfolds both in China and now in other countries such as Colombia. Secondly, I'll mention a project jointly with the World Bank and now going to be implemented also in China called the Natural Capital Index, which shows how we can use our resources in a way efficiently, increasing both traditionally measured economic values as well as ecosystem services, so that we actually do better for nature and people. And the third project I'll mention, which is jointly with the World Bank, is called the Economic Case for Nature, where we have linked ecosystem service models with kind of traditional computable general equilibrium models in economics to show both from very local levels up to national levels what the macroeconomic effects of protecting nature are. In all of these cases, there has been very rapid gain on the scientific front and on data and knowledge. And it's very heartening to work with colleagues such as those at the development banks, at the World Bank, and the Chinese Academy of Sciences to try to mainstream these values, which will be essential to moving forward on sustainable development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Polanski, for sharing your views. We are now trying to reconnect with Dr. Daly. Let's try again. We still cannot hear you. Okay, we keep trying, if you don't mind to remain standby. Sorry about this. And I will now invite Professor Ziyuno Yang. He's here on site. He's from the Research Center of Ecology and Environmental Science at the Chinese Academy of Social Science.
各位大家，
Lady-
我的生态系统 我们知道森林啊、草地、湖泊交错等等，包括海洋，为人类提供了生存与发展所必须的物质资源和环境条件。按中国的语言来讲，统称为生态产品。这些生态产品既是自然财富，就自然是存在的，为自然的演替发展物种的生存提供的基础，也是人类的经济财富，同样具有巨大的经济价值。保护和恢复生态系统和生物多样性，本质上就是增加自然生态的面积，提升生态系统的质量，增强生态系统提供生态产品的能力，也就是增加自然财富和经济财富。我们现在推动生态产品价值实现机制，就是争取将自然财富转化为经济财富，不伤害生态系统的前提下，要自然的所有者、自然财富的所有者、拥有者和经营者获得经济效益，从而促进生态保护和恢复的投资，形成生态保护和绿色发展的良性循环。所以我们投资生态系统，投资保护和恢复生态系统和生物多样性的保护，实际上就是发展生产力。就我们总书记习近平总书记所说的，保护与恢复生态环境就是发展生产力。所以我们对这一点，保护和发展是一致的，不是矛盾的，只不过我们必须选择合适途径来推进。我就到这，谢谢。
Thank you very much, Professor, for your insightful comments and for being so brief and within the time. I appreciate it. I'm not sure if we are trying again with Dr. Daly or if we move to the next speaker and we try a little bit later. I don't see her on screen, so I'm going then to... Oh, here you are. Welcome again, Dr. Daly. Let's see if we can hear you this time. This is demoralizing. I'm very sorry, but we can't hear you. So we wait maybe until the end of the panel. I'm going to give the floor to the remaining speakers, and we try one more time. We would really like to listen to you. Thank you. The next speaker is Dr. Martijn Bilder, Professor of International Climate Change Law at the Australian National University and Director of the Climate Council. Professor Wilder, the floor is yours.
Okay, I hope you can hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. So it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me today. I think I'll just quickly I want to focus on one key comment, and that is what we need to do really is to create a new asset class, which is nature. So at the firm which I'm now set up a few years ago, Pollination, we set up a joint venture with HSBC to establish a fund to invest in natural capital. And I think the thinking around this was that unless we could get institutional investors to invest in nature, it would be very difficult to move large amounts of capital. So what this fund and what the theory is that we will provide investments for large-scale capital to invest in those businesses that interact with nature, but make sure that that interaction is in a more sustainable way. So to provide a range of investments within a fund that include investing in agriculture that's more regenerative and sustainable, forestry that's more sustainable and more akin to protecting biodiversity, fisheries that is more sustainable, and then over time, as it's possible, to create opportunities to invest in biodiversity and to invest in specifically in nature itself. So those parts of the value chain will take longer. But the idea is very much to try to move those traditional investments in those areas into ones that are far more aligned with nature, and then to also measure the impact that you have over time. Ultimately, we're trying to make, and then also within that, as you do a particular activity, you also generate income from ecosystem services as they start to materialize, whether that be soil carbon, whether that be carbon itself. So that is really the theory. But I still think that in order to really transform nature investment, we need to really accelerate our assessment of nature risk. And so when any institution does an investment into any activity that has an impact on nature, we should be undertaking a significant nature impact assessment. So in the same way as the World Bank and the ADB and the IADB are moving away now from investing in coal because it's of high risk, we should be not investing in projects that have a high nature impact as well, without some sort of plan to exit that. In addition to that, we need to start looking at more aggressive measures to invest in nature. And so in the same way that we have things like the Basel Convention that requires banks to maintain a strategic finance reserve, we should be looking at ways to implement a strategic nature reserve globally. And so I think we have to be bold, we have to move fast, and we have to do things that are beyond just simply tinkering around the edges by trying to do small measures. We have to really move a lot of capital. And in the first 6 months of this year, every single major investment bank on the planet wrote a report of the importance of financing nature. I don't think any of them talked about how to actually move money at scale. So I think by having these significant investments and these combined with more aggressive regulatory frameworks to require that is absolutely fundamental. So I'll just leave it there.
Thank you very much, Professor Wilder, for sharing these important and insightful observations. I'm going to invite now Dr. Ma Jun, who is here on site, Director of the Center for Finance and Development at Tsinghua University and Chairman of the China Green Finance Committee, to present his views on the importance of natural capital.
Thank you, Yolanda. Let me switch to Chinese. 刚才好几位尤其是欧阳老师已经
Experts, especially Ouyang, has mentioned that natural assets should transit into economic assets. During the last year, according to our latest research, globally we require 1 trillion capital into the natural assets. However, only partially are realized. Around 10% are realized, and the majority of the investment requirement is still missing. Then who to fill the gap between the investment and the requirement, which requires the investment bank, financial institutions to participate, to recall the society to invest in natural capital asset. Then how to interest the financial institutions? I would like to illustrate one example. According to a report, they need to recognize the risks in natural capital investment. Around 99 investment banks and a research center called Inspire have co-hosted a biodiversity and risk management in such area. This is an intermediate report which has released on the website, focusing on financial institute should also focusing on the risk and the natural capital as well as biodiversity. I would like to elaborate on this aspect because the biodiversity loss as well as biodiversity conservation affecting economic activities causing risks for financial institutions. There are two aspects of risks. The first is physical risks. The biodiversity losses causing the diminishing of economic activities for factors. For example, desertification would stop the production in this area. Water supply shortage could also cause production diminishing, including fishery and other manufacturing sectors. And severe water pollution could cause deaths in fish, causing the reduction in tourism, hoteling, and other aspects, and cause risks in such areas. The second risk is transitional risk due to the protection of biodiversity for government, causing bankruptcy for enterprises. For example, President Xi has announced the establishment of several national parks. Other countries have been launching policies banning fishery or marine fishing, causing the plastic pollution reduction, or banning the killing of wildlife, marine wildlife. This could affect industries or sectors and enterprises based on fisheries. Recently, there are properties, even power stations near ecological areas in our country. My conclusion is that fiscal institutions need to focusing on the financial risks as well as the biodiversity loss causing risks into the investment risks. Therefore, the monitoring regulation department need to formulate practices for investment on natured assets. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the focused remarks and good advice. We are going to try again to listen to Dr. Daly, hoping this time it works.
How's this time?
Wonderful.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Thank you for the wonderful contributions. I feel we're on such an inspiring course. And I would like to emphasize just a couple of things, building on the really wise and wonderful remarks from others. First of all, it's that nothing is more powerful than real demonstrations. And these demonstrations need to show the twin outcomes of all of this accounting and planning and financing, the twin outcomes of green and inclusive development with benefits both for nature and for people. And key needs to emphasize what some of the others have said, this work much more accessible and much more actionable. There's so much demand for it. All of us are getting many more requests than we can handle. Demand from key leaders in all sectors of government and of the private industry and finance. So one thing we must accelerate is making the data, the science, oh shoot, now my computer is really going crazy. The data, the science, and valuation approaches, the tools, much more accessible and actionable. And this will lead to ever more compelling demonstrations in many countries and to really locking in on some good standards, such as GEP, a framework and an approach that can be adapted and adopted at scale across the world, and where we already see tremendous demand and support in Latin America and involving IDB, and in Asia involving ADB. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for this tremendous gathering and sharing, and I look forward to building together the next phase of our pathway for transformation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daly, for your patience and enduring the IT issue. It has been a pleasure to listen to you here in Kunming. Let me close the session by thanking all the participants for sharing their expertise, experiences and knowledge. We have learned a lot about natural capital and natural capital accounting and what the wonderful implications we can have if we do a better job on this. Before closing, I'm very pleased to invite the next moderator of the next session, which is Ms. Marcia Mongiorgi Lorenzo. She's the Principal Country Specialist for ADB in our office in Beijing. Over to you, Marcia.
Okay. Thank you, Yolanda, and good morning to all our distinguished participants here in Kunming and online. Welcome to this second session focusing on innovation and practices for investing in natural capital through GEP and the mechanism for ecological product value realizations. It is my pleasure to be your moderator this morning. In previous sessions, we have heard about the importance of value in nature and integrating this into development and investment decisions processes. In these sessions, we will be showcasing PRC experiences. We will hear about the tremendous progress the PRC has made with GEP and how the PRC have prioritized investments in nature, pollution reduction, and ecosystem rehabilitation. For this, we have lined up leading experts in these sessions. We will hear from 4 presenters that will have to speak for 10 minutes each, followed by the panel discussions with local experts showcasing local experiences. As previously mentioned, in the interest of time, please kindly stick to your time. Without further ado, let me introduce the first presenter, DDG Ma from Department of Infrastructure Development of NDRC. He will present NDRC efforts in exploring a mechanism for ecological product value realization. DDG Ma, the floor is yours.
Distinguished Vice Governor Ren, I'm very delighted to join you today to discuss about biodiversity as well as natural capital accounting and ecological product value realization. President Xi has released speeches due to ecological product value realization, and this April, the Central Office has realized guideline on eco-product value realization and put green is gold into the implementation stage and have conducted top design on eco-product value realization. Next, we would like to talk about the practice in this aspect. The first existing practice exploration. The first is to measure the natural ecological value, carry out the value accounting of ecological product, improve the technology regulation standard system. The Chinese Academy of Science has built a relative complete eco-product value accounting system, has been implemented by a lot of places. Zhejiang Lixuan issued the local standard of ecological product value accounting guideline. Shenzhen formulated the specification for the accounting and established a dual assessment system for the eco-product and the economic development. The second is to enrich the value realization path, focusing on 3 types of eco-product. Realize in terms of the materials realization, they have carried out products in different aspects using the big data to lower the cost of operation and increase competitiveness in such area. In terms of cultural services, they have actively developed ecotourism and achieved rapid growth in tourism revenue. Third is to carry out compensation for ecological protection, improve vertical and horizontal eco-protection compensation model. In terms of vertical compensation, central government transfer payment of key eco-function areas each year, which exceeds 70 billion in 2020. Yunnan, Guizhou, Sichuan, and other provinces jointly funded the establishment of horizontal compensation fund. Zhejiang and Anhui carry out Xi'an River Basin Protection compensation and allocate compensation fund based on the result of cross-provincial section water quality monitoring. The fourth is deepen the exploration of green finance. We provide guarantee for realization. Fujian Nanping has innovated eco-bank, allocating the distributed the forestry, land, water, minery, and agriculture to integrate those sectors and utilize operation.
After many years' practices, we have established some and gathered experiences, but the standard is not unified, and the compensation is not targeted, and the financing system is not complete. We need to still continue to work on it and make breakthroughs. On the other hand, some key areas we need to make breakthroughs. Under the guideline promulgated by the central government, we specified some areas and summarized them as measurement, trade, and capitalized monetization. And we established a investigation and monitoring system, and to improve and establish a protection and compensation system, and the realization guarantee system, and the promotion system. On these 6 areas, we will holistically implement the suggestions made by the government and establish a coordinated development in the urban area and the countryside, and build a harmonious relation between man and nature and make duly breakthrough. First is make breakthrough in capital accounting system. It's the foundation of other courses. And to make breakthrough on this end is to create a better measurement system, to understand the entity of natural capital accounting, and to ensure it's filed and recorded, and understand the amount and the quality, and create a list of the natural product, and to establish a dynamic platform of ecological product. Second is based on its different approaches and the pathways to establish a system targets the entire country and the local system. One is for the government level, one is for the market purpose. Gradually create a holistic system that can be recognized and accepted by different sectors. Third is to implement the result to be put into practice, to integrate it into performance evaluation. On the other hand, is to ensure there are breakthrough in trading, to ensure the supply and demand is connected, to connect the bridge between the supplier and the demand, and to create a platform for that purpose. On the other hand, we should also protect the ecological resources and try to regulate the services and the supply. Third is to promote a high-level design of trading product and to increase the trade volume. On the other hand, we should also make breakthrough in the compensation system. This is to target the monetization problem, to establish and perfect the compensation system vertically and horizontally, and make it reasonable and solid. Ensure the compensation system can be evaluated and ensure it can be internalized. Third, to establish a performance review system, to include it into the government's performance review system, to restrain the market as well as the government. 4, on the green financing basis, to make breakthrough, to target the problem of mortgage. to create innovative financing tools and to create more green financing tools and to implement it where it is possible and encourage financing services provided to the right party and to create more green bonds and ecological bond to be implemented. It's a complicated project. It cannot be guaranteed and reached in one go. It's a long way for us to go. We need to move on step by step and deepen our exploration. We would support where it is ready to connect them to the right policy and to implement the compensation and the evaluation policy and to carry out pilot projects. When the pilot project approved to be viable, we will scale up the implementation. We should also provide more solid support to facilitate with interdisciplinary expertise. Though on the international level, we have already got some expertise and experiences, but we need to gradually extract and learn from them to connect them to the local condition. And we should support universities and enterprises to create more qualified interdisciplinary talents to provide support for these projects and support international exchanges, international cooperation, and learn from each other. Third, we should secure the necessary facilities and financial support as well as other kind of support to provide some areas with preferential policies and support. Use restored land, turn them into tourism destination for other purposes to empower local more authorities. Ladies and gentlemen, transformation is the commonly recognized way for ensure biodiversity and ecological protection. We would gather our knowledge and work together to ensure we have a beautiful future with man and nature. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jima, for the very important points you stress. Especially, I like the step-by-step transformation, the involvement of key players of the economy, of all players, innovation and international knowledge. Thank you again. Let me introduce now Director Yu from the Center of Environmental Risk and Damage Assessment, Chinese Academy of Environmental Planning. She will be introducing the fundamental concept for eco-products value accounting.
Thank you, moderator, Miss Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, good morning. Today I will talk about the assessment, damage assessment, and environmental risk. I will talk from 4 areas. First, there are different types of theories. The first one is weak sustainability studies. Which means the value can be replaced by other assets. The evaluation focuses on avoiding damage and the productivity created, which is what we know as GEP. Another system is a strong sustainability-based system, and it stress on the natural capital cannot be easily replaced. It should restrain natural capital from replaced by other capital. It is stress on the restoration of natural capacity service. So it focuses on the function if we want to put a value on that, we need to use biodiversity and other cost of the restoration to evaluate it. In the weak sustainability method at the international level, there have been a lot of studies carried out. Some key studies include the UN-led framework studies. Under this key framework in 2014, a series of publications have been made. In 2021, SEA Ecosystem Accounting was published at the UN, and the World Bank and other organizations support. Weak sustainability-based capital accounting have been carried out, including KEEP and the World Bank-led WAVES and the UN-led Sustainable Development Goals, these frameworks. And the key of these goals and the plans focuses on integrating natural capital accounting into the mainstream accounting system. There have been progresses made in different countries. In terms of green capital, in Finland, they connected the human activity and connected to the spatial design in urban areas. In the UK, they conducted survey on the willingness to pay and to ensure that the transformation and the North Sea seabed to turn it into the habitat for bird is more valuable than carrying out cultural heritage and tourism project in that area. In the US, they also made a study on the hydro station. In Hungary, there has been similar studies as well on wetland. In Costa Rica, they studied on the carbon sequestration and packaged it and made foreign exchanges injected into the restoration of the land of the tropical forest and helped the local farmers to increase their income. In China, under the support of the World Bank, we created the accounting system in 2004, led by the former Ministry of Ecology and with the Ministry of Committee of Department of Statistics, made an accounting system and included the damage cost into the natural capital accounting system. In 2015, we officially rolled out the GEP system, and in 2017, GEP was GEEP was put onto the priority, and it was used to evaluate the degradation and human activity and the product and all of the values under the one umbrella of the evaluation system. In China, Shanxi is probably very likely to be the first province to be evaluated with the GEP system. This is a study of 16 years and the recent 5-year GEP accounting result. The degradation cost in 2013 and 14 reached a peak and gradually reduced afterwards. In the left lower part image, we could see it's decoupled with the GDP growth, which was quite promising indicator. From the GEP accounting result from 2015, it was 119 trillion and reached 149 trillion in 2018, and the growth rates remain the same. The degradation cost between 2015 and 2018 is just 1.7%, much lower than the GEP growth rate, which also shows decoupling. The numbers from different provinces also look quite interesting. In some economically developed provinces, the growth is promising, and it shows a virtuous cycle. These provinces are Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Guangdong. In degradation severely hit provinces like Inner Mongolia, Gansu, and Hebei, the GEP growth rate is higher than the GDP growth. That means these provinces attach great importance in the restoration of nature. But on the fourth quadrant, in Heilongjiang, Jilin, and now Liaoning, the GDP growth rate and GEP growth rate are all negative. This is a bit alarming. And based on all of these systems, we made policy evaluation. For example, for the action of air pollution, every reduction of 1 μm, the investment is 126 billion RMB. So it's about 1.5 times of the total cost. We also evaluated on the rare earth exploration. We found that exploration natural cost accounts for 45% of the cost of this product. That means the rare earth revenue is actually negative. So, and this method actually plays an important part and in the compensation system. Under this strong sustainability system, we stress on serving the damaged environment, not just to bring it back to the baseline. We should also compensate on the duration of the recovery. We use the restorable method or we use the REA or the HEA method. Under this framework, we stress on biodiversity recovery goal. For example, the amount and the recovery rate and the amount of species and the key protected species amount. To take these as the goal and to make relevant plans so to support in situ same species recovery. In this area, in international world, there had been a lot of practices. For example, in the UK, there were the Biodiversity Protection Plan and the US Land Retirement Plan program and the US Wetland Bank. There was a pre-project design to ensure the biological, ecological function remained the same. The US OSLTF have already supported 40,000 cases and made compensation for 7,000 cases and made a compensation of over $2.6 billion US. We had some practices in the compensation and complaints, and we saw a raise up to 4,000 cases and made a compensation of 7.8 billion RMB. Surrounding the ecological product value realization, we put forward 6 suggestions. First is to speed up the establishment of an ecological product survey and monitoring mechanism, to standardize the monitoring system, to ensure the framework and the content, to ensure that the parameters can be localized in different areas and make it can be traded, and establish a nature-based solutions and a compensation system design to promote the implementation and accountability and the evaluation system. The cost of we haven't found a viable direction plan at the moment. The cases in the international world provide us as good reference. We should also establish a green financing system to support. The 6 areas that we need to help local government to find the ecological chain that fits them and suits them the best.
To enhance the eco industry. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Director Lee.
National and PRC evolution and application of eco-product value accounting showed us how a powerful tool can be for decision maker. And thank you for your valuable recommendations. Let me introduce the next presenter, Professor Zhang from the Research Center for Eco-Environmental Sciences, Chinese Academy of Science, and Deputy Director of State Key Laboratory of Urban and Regional Ecology. He will present on GEP and lessons for development planning. Professor Zhang, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Distinguished Governor Ren, distinguished guests, I'm very delighted on behalf of the team leader Ouyang Zhiyun to introduce GEP accounting and policy applications in China and its progress achieved by our team. I have three aspects to cover today. The first is what is GEP? The second part is how to measure GEP. The last one is how to apply such concept. We all know that in society, economy, and nature, at present, there's a lack of effective measure assessing the contribution of nature to the society and economy. In order to coordinate the relationship between human and the society, President Xi promoted the idea of clean water and green mountains, or gold and silver mountain, to give prominence to nature's value for people. Based on this background, Professor Ouyang and Professor Zhu have promoted GEP, which means that in one aspect region, the final value of service of the ecosystem provided for 1 year. In order to identify such concept, we have several questions to solve. The first is, where does the service come from? How much is the service value? And who does it contribute to? Based on such questions, we establish some steps. The first is to collect data, to use the invest to calculate the natural capital. The third step is the most critical one, is to analyze the pathway of the contribution and to whom it was contributed to, and the price and the value of the services of the ecosystem, which we can account for the GEP. So we can solve those three questions here. Now we have a very short case answering such three questions using Qinghai as a case. In pilot accounting, the first is to establish the indicator system, identifying the key areas and sectors. The second is to use the invest mode to analyze the space analysis of such service provided by the ecosystem. Based on the space structure, we can enter into the last step, the most critical one, which is to analyze the pathway of the service of ecosystem and the people it contributes to. For example, in Qinghai, we have the local people as well as the lower stream people community, and also the global carbon reduction benefits. By analyzing those pathways, we can conclude the people and the community contributed to. Then we can also calculate how much is the contribution. For example, globally it accounts for 2%. Regional it accounts for around 62%. And locally it only accounts for 36%. Through 4 steps, we can answer the question of GEP accounting. Where does the service come from? To whom it provides the service value? It can give us scientific support for policymaking. As for where we can solve the problem of spatial planning, to protect the key sector and area, to use the limited financial investment to support such areas, and also about how much does the service provide, we can integrate into the green finance to support both development as well as protection of ecosystem. We also know that to whom it provides the service to, we can solve the problem of ecological compensation. Next, I would like to focus on a case to show the application of such theory. For example, the Ecological Ministry have conducted a practice. The first step is to spatial planning of the eco-service to showcase that the key sectors providing the services, which is a space structure of our country in ecosystem service. And based on the product and the service it provides, we formulate the national red line for ecosystem protection, and also we adjust the eco-function planning. In terms of the natural conservation, we would like to highlight the comprehensive structure. Such spatial planning provided the support for policymaking. After we identified the value and service of the ecosystem, we can solve the problem of the accounting. For example, 丽水 GEP accounting and systematic design, they integrate into the financial institution and investment, and they formed the two-mountain theory and model, which has been implemented gradually. And also, to whom it provides the service and value for, we have identified the beneficiary as well as the contributor of the ecosystem, and this is the implementation of ecological transfer from the financial department and the ecological department. We can identify the transfer targets. It provides a very strong link between those two. Of course, during our process, there are 3 challenges. The first is we need to realize repeatable accounting. The second is applicable. The third is scaling up. Facing those challenges, we seek solutions for such challenges. For example, is to standardize the method to be repeatable. And in terms of application, we seek innovation in PEX and policy to scale up the mode. We use pilots to scale up the mode. For example, we have established different standards allowing results to be compared in different years to identify the effect and achievements in ecosystem protection. In terms of the application, the Shenzhen Statistic Bureau has applied the GEP accounting system for yearly GEP accounting, promoting economic GEP and GDP development. In scaling up through provinces, cities, and prefectures, we would like to conduct pilots to scaling up GEP. For example, we have conducted GEP in 4 provinces. There are above 10 cities and prefectures have conducted GEP as well, and applied it into different policy background to scaling up the application of GEP. So at present, we have seek solutions for the 3 areas. Where does it come from? How much does it come from? How much is it, and to whom it contributes to? Through science, policy, and practice, we would like to achieve repeatable, applicable, and scaling up GEP. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the amazing presentation on the tremendous progress of PRC on GEP accounting. Let me introduce the next presenter, Professor Yang of Yunnan Academy of Forestry and Grassland, member of the National Endangered Species Scientific Committee. He will present on the role of ecological product in biodiversity conservation. Professor Yang, the floor is yours.
Distinguished moderator, distinguished Professor Jing, distinguished leaders and guests, I'm very delighted to share the achievements in Yunnan province in terms of protecting the biodiversity. Yunnan has a very unique location. Due to the time limits, I will not elaborate on each of them. However, I will focus that Yunnan has a very advantage location, and there are atmospheric pressure differences. Due to the complex landscape and geological location, it causes high density in biodiversity. There are 36 global biodiversity hotspots. Yunnan is in the intersection of such hotspots. Under such background, there's a pattern that we can observe during the Protection Convention on the Biodiversity Conservation. There are 2 circles that we can focus on in Yunnan. The first is the west of Yunnan and the south of Yunnan. During the past decade, we have hosted the action plan for biodiversity protection in Yunnan, and also we have established the regulation on biodiversity in Yunnan, and also focusing on the zoning of Yunnan biodiversity. There are primary and secondary zoning in Yunnan. In the three river areas in Yunnan, it has the highest biodiversity density and has a rich forest resources. In the past 40 years, it's a highlight for the protection of forestry in our province. There are several pictures that we have taken from the 90s to at present. In the 90s, we can see that there are economic consequences on ecological services. There are contradictory and conflicts between development and the ecosystem. At that time, we planned to suggest the Putahai into the national park. However, till the last step, it was rejected by the local government because the local fiscal revenue does not support such action. The local community rely on such ecosystem, they cannot survive. For natural reserves, they cannot conduct tourism, so the local community would lose the income in this aspect. Therefore, we innovate and establish the national park on Pudaco. I am responsible for the technology part in this national park. It has a very crucial service of ecosystem in this area. Based on the previous plan, it will be problematic. Therefore, we introduced some concept from IUCN. The goal is to solve the local community protection by using tourism ecologically. There's no scientific support at that time, so I have this opinion is that we need to combine practice and theory in terms of ecotourism based on green is gold. The previous speaker have mentioned as the scientific theory foundation for this. We also need to provide cases for such theories. This place has very beautiful scenery. However, it's the least developed area, especially in the late 90s. It's not sustainable. Under such situation, under the leadership of the local government,
there were about 2,000 Tibetan minorities living there, and without any sustainable livelihood. By establishing the national park, we were able to help them to benefit from the ecological service. Due to time constraint, I will not elaborate on the data. Before establishing, which was 2007, the governor officially established it, and by 2018, we made a revenue of 1.8 billion. They transferred the traditional logging and farming to ecological service. We call that the fourth industry. And this is a good case to lead other 13 cases to be established in the province at the provincial level. We also promulgated the regulation on the management of national park and national park standards. This case shows intangible case. Another tangible case was in the southeast area of Yunnan, and it is home to a lot of assets carried on from the Cretaceous period, and there is a plant called 蒜头果, the millennia, which was a living ancient fossil, and it was set as a protected vegetation. British people extracted a very important element called navonic acid from this plantation, and most of this essence was extracted from deep sea fish as well as sea buckthorn. So that's not sustainable. So if we could protect this type of millennium, then we could ensure sustainable supply of this element. So we tried to establish a farming system and provide that system to the local Tibetan farmers. In areas that's not suitable for other trees in the plantation, this type of vegetation can quickly be proliferated in this area. They restored 5 mu of forest areas and used this land to help to scale up the growth of this endangered species, reached and increased it from 7,000 plants to 25,000. Japanese people, to acquire this kind of asset, they first extracted it from shark and they tried to synthesize it. However, after many years of study, they gave it up. And once they heard we found plant-based sources, they said this tree is a synthesize lab, synthesize factory, and it provides great value in ecological restoration. So this is also although this is just a biological product, it has already been providing desertification, restoration support. And it has become a fruit that can bring ecological and economical benefit to local people. And it set a very good example and model for other areas to study. On the basis of this, we also carried out a study on the muscarine and benzaldehyde and carbon monodilute acid and the seed protein. We have teams focusing on different areas on the restoration of the source of the origin of Zhujiang River. Another team is working on this navonic acid and putting it as a priority case. For a lot of other species, if we only study on it at scientific levels to understand its importance, then it would be hard to just raise the local awareness at local level, to persuade local governors and local people to join us on the same page to understand its value. Only when they can provide financial benefit and social benefit to local people, it will help to get their support and awareness. So lastly, I'd like to put this photo here. The boy in the middle, he was 8. When we were doing the survey, we have been many times telling them the red panda and black snub-nosed monkey are national level protected species. Then he asked me, at what level are we protected by the national law? Who taught you this? I was surprised. He said, no, I didn't go to school. And he was 8. He never went to school for a day. And I said, you are at the special level. What does special mean? That means you're top level, I said. So for natural preservation workers as me, we first need to protect you, the indigenous people. We are scientists, we can only provide the technologies and the skills. We need to rely on you to work with us together because you live in harmony with the nature for centuries. So we first need to protect you so that we can better provide our target. I use this photo as to conclude my speech. Because when, in terms of a product value realization, it's a complicated system. We made a lot of theoretical studies. We don't have much capacity to do that, but we are working on hotspot zones and the front line to solve the top issues in the local area. By solving these local problems, we found human-centered and human benefit-centered is the guideline for our job, which also echoes what President Xi said at the day before yesterday's speech. He rolled out 4 suggestions. The third one mentioned human-centered. We also stress on the balanced and harmonious relation between man and nature. If we can solve the problems faced by the local community, it also helps us to solve other problems, including biodiversity preservation, and the result can be multiplied. Thank you very much. I'm happy to hear feedbacks from you.
First, a quick announcement. We have tea break outside. We won't break, however, for it, but you can go out and get your drink and food as needed. But please don't go away, because we are now entering the second part of the session. We will hear from 3 representatives from local governments who will share their experiences in piloting in GEP accounting. You heard already from Professor Zheng. He had a slide on Lishui City. We have now so lucky that we can hear directly from the Deputy Mayor, Mr. Du, from Lishui City in Zhejiang Province, the first pilot city in China. Mr. Du, you have 5 minutes, and the floor is yours.
Distinguished leaders, the delegates, and good morning. My name is Du Xingling from Lishui City in Zhejiang Province. Lishui City is located in the southwest of Zhejiang Province, accounts for 1/6 of the total area of Zhejiang Province. We were the pilot city of President Xi's Golden Mountain, Green Mountain theory. We were honored to be the pilot area, and it was also one of the origin of Chinese Red Revolution. And we became the first pilot city for ecological product value realization. We were the only one in China, and Jiangxi Fuzhou City joined the pilot project. For the past 3 years, we focused on the capital accounting and established a market trading mechanism, and made a bold exploration to ensure that the natural resources transform to natural products and ecological products. We made some progresses and achievements in this May. The pilot project sharing forum of natural capital accounting was held in our city this May. We have already set examples and the key studies in this area. So taking this opportunity, I'd like to share some achievements and some practices we made. First is that we need to stick to be guided by the government, establish this natural capital accounting system for ecological product. The establishment of natural capital accounting is the foundation and the core of ecological product value realization. We need to create a list and standardize it and make it into institutionalized. First is to create a list. We need to evaluate the food chain and the value chain. We need to put a value to each item and what are the values. So on these two areas, we formulated ecological product catalog for counties and villages. Second is to be standardized. We formulated the first standardized guidelines in China, and we completed the GEP accounting at the county level and the township level, have been integrated in the strategic plan of Zhejiang. Based on remote sensing and big data, we combined this three-dimensional data-based monitoring system. We also worked with aviation and aerospace systems. We have 8 satellites working for us, providing data at the city, township and village level. We establish systems. Third is to be institutionalized. With all the aforementioned work laid out, we carried out city, county, and village and pilot village level, 4 levels of GEP result promulgation. We also officially announced the Zhejiang Ecological System GEP guideline to establish an annual evaluation system and the guideline. Based on practices, we also issued the implementation of result and the practices guideline. To ensure the system will be included into performance review, included into the overall plan, included into the decision making, included into monitoring and the trading and other projects. This is the first thing I'd like to report to you. Guided by the government and system standardization. Second is to strengthen the realization system of ecological products. I'd like to share with you with 3 cases. One is on an enterprise. First, I'd like to talk about a company. It's a German company called Xiaote. They specialize in special glass R&D and the production. You probably are not familiar with this company. Take an example. We are still under the influence of pandemic. We take vaccination. The vial for that vaccination relies on import. It's a very special vial and it cannot be produced easily. So with their import, it's supplied 80% of the vials for the vaccination. So by having them here, we do not have to solely rely on import, because that requires really, really high quality production of glass. In the Yangtze River Delta regions, we have to select a location for that company. After many, many studies and analysis, they chose Lishui as their location. Taking the chair of the board of this group, citing he said, high-quality pharmaceutical production relies on quality and high-class ecological environment, and Li Shui has it, coupled with supply chain and business environment. That's why they chose us. Second is one transaction, the national grid. The the state power investment. They made an investment of 2.7 million RMB for the purchase of photovoltaic projects and equipment, and to benefit local farmers because the project was good, and they invested an extra of 2.79 million to benefit local farmer. Another case is a loan. The Qingtian County separated the use right and the mortgage right, as well as the distribution right of a GEP loan of 5 million. And then they also released a certificate for ecological resource exploration, and the future benefit belong to are separated. The first loan, called the GEP loan, worth of 5 million, was given out at that time. So with this money in hand, we could carry out lots of projects. So these are good examples. Just as an example, due to time constraint, I will not elaborate on other projects. So the goal is to turn our lucid water and green mountains into gold mountains, and while protecting them. We haven't actually reached that goal, so we need to find innovative pathways to reach that goal. We created a set of solutions with Li Shui characteristics by respecting local innovative capacity and taking learnings from the local practices into institutionalized standards. Third, I'd like to talk about facilitating and mobilizing the market mechanism. We need to rely on the market to realize the transaction and trading. By guarantee ecological purposes, we need to benefit the market players to help them to pay for the ecological benefits. This is our fundamental logic. We need to release the capacity and determining power of market in this sense, and to help to build ecological-based companies. And we established two banks to ensure people involved in this farmers would get compensated, and established a multi-level, multi-entity related trading market. For example, we have a river called the Ojiang River. It's the second largest river in Zhejiang province, in upstream and lower stream. The water treatment money should be, if it doesn't meet the treatment level, the lower stream government should make compensation to the upper stream government. And the first GEP transaction was successfully made. A Hangzhou-based company made a payment of 2.94 million to purchase their ecological product. There are other examples as well. So the cases ends this September. We have completed a worth of 870 million RMB.
Due to the carbon peaking and the carbon neutrality as the biggest trend, we have established the value realization of eco-product as trading mechanism. We have conducted a few projects on this. For example, the local government department and the neighboring cities, they would trade carbon with us. It sounds very far away. Actually, it has started to realize. At present, the value mechanism has transiting from pilot into demonstration. In the future, we will conduct further work in this aspect and promoting successful cases and demonstrations for this aspect. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor, there is a lot to learn from Li Shui. Now let's hear another experience from Deputy County Mayor Wang from Dechin County in Zhejiang Province on some aspect of the digitalization of the GEP mechanism. Please, Mr. Wang, the floor is yours.
好，各位领导、各位专家、各位嘉宾，我是德清县人民政府副县长王正全。
Hello, I'm Wang Zhenquan from Deputy Director Mayor of Dejing County, Zhejiang Province. Today I will cover the natural capital accounting and ecological product value realization. The first is the brief introduction on our county. It was in Huzhou city of Zhejiang Province, covering 938 kilometers. We have a population of 650,000. We have a high-tech zoo as well as national tourist resort. We have very long history. It's a county of coexistence of human and nature. According to a poem, our county is famous for the clean stream as well as the beauty of the people. For 1,800 years of history, we have a traveling culture, wind prevention, and proclaim culture. We have established as the demonstration case for the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. The New York Times have commented as one of the 45 must travel places, which is Moganshan in our county. The one stay in this place costs thousands of yuan, which is also very fully booked due to its beautiful scenery. We have a very prosperous business in our city. At present, we have modern agriculture, which is also very prosperous. And we have a regional brand called Mr. Youdé. We have a kind of fish which has chip in it, and also other famous shrimps and sea product. In the research center, we have established the two-mountain transition theory to calculate GEP, realizing the valuation of eco-product. In the last 3 years, we have studied and conducted exploration, and nationwide we have reached the three first. Is the first to establish GEP and established a comprehensive eco-valuation, assessment, monitoring, and management. And also second is to incorporate GEP into the digital innovation of Zhejiang Province. And lastly is to put GEP results into planning, decision-making, project, and assessment, and providing new pathway sharing social benefit. The second part is accounting system. We have established one database as the ecological resources. According to related statistics and indicators, we calculate them into the database to account the total GEP of our county. The one map means the eco resources map, digital map. We have calculated the distribution of all ecological resources and realize a digital map for the natural resources. One system means the GEP accounting system, establish forest, shrub, wetland, farmland as the ecological product accounting model. The application we have realized 1 + 2 + X. The first one is GEP assisting model. The X means the application, among which the first is focusing on the service supply. So before every investment, we calculate the location choice on GEP to show the benefits and cost and choose the best place to invest. We can compare the location of such project and also GEP financial and loan. We use GEP as a credit and use eco-credit to realize the value of eco-product and also the green currency. In terms of the governance demand, we have two applications. The first is ecosystem compensation. It accounts for 75 of the GEP. At present, the result was replaced by GEP, and also the official from the government audit in terms of the natural asset, we can calculate more scientifically according to the GEP. And fourthly is the achievements. Under the leadership of the digitalization of the Zhejiang province, with GEP we have achieved some results. The first is to calculate the natural assets of our county, and the second is to quantify our eco effect. The last is to calculate our eco cost. Lastly, I would like to invite you to Deqing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's again a lot to learn from this pilot. Let me invite Deputy County Mayor Zhang from Weichan County, this time from Hebei Province, and he will explain something more related to poverty alleviation and ecological products. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Distinguished Vice Governor Ren, hello everyone. I'm from Ministry of Ecology and Environment, member of the Standing Committee of the Weichan County Committee and Deputy County Chief. Today I would like to talk about the accounting of and the realization of GEP of Weichan. First off, I would like to conduct an overview of Weichan County. There are three characters. The first is Weichan is in the most north in Hebei, and the coverage is the biggest county in Hebei, meaning that Tianjin is 12,000 kilometers. And we have a coverage of 50% of Beijing's coverage. And also we have a upper wind and upper stream. And in this place we have forest grassland and lake have a very beautiful scenery. Historically and in the modern time, I would like to talk about our county. In 1681, Kangxi have set up the Mulan paddock. On the right side, you can see a drawing in ancient time describing our county. On the left side, you can see the Emperor Kangxi. It has a very strategic location as well as a very good view. However, gradually through the demolish of the Qing dynasty and before the establishment of PRC, there are only one pine tree left at our place. So therefore, at that time, we established 60 years of forestation and turned one pine into 10,000 acres of forest as a miracle. Therefore, in 2017, President Xi has asked to learn from the hard work and green development of Sahaba. In the same year, we won the Guardian of the Earth Award, the highest honor of the United Nations for environmental protection. At present, the county's forest reach 60%, and it was known as the source of water, the homeland of clouds, the world of flowers, and the ocean of forest. We are also awarded as a practice and innovation base for Lucid Water and Lush Mountain, our invaluable assets. Now we will take a look at the GEP of our county. In 2020, the CAEP has conducted a report on our county in GEP. Till the end of 2018, we reached 880 billion yuan. The adjusting service reached, the regulating service reached 67 billion. In terms of culture and tourism value, we have Sahanba National Forest Park and the Hongsonghua Scenic Area, as well as Yangtze Grassland Forest Scenic Area. Then how we reach value realization in terms of ecological product. The first is Hali has some ecological product value realization case. It's a very beautiful place. We have conducted a wetland park in this area. In September, the Ministry of Ecology and Environment have set up this wetland as the natural base and to conduct tourism, ecotourism. And also we have a project on straw to collect the labor and turns the wasteland agricultural straw into treasury to increase farmers' income. You can see the straw was turned into different eco-product. We have made it into gifts for you today. And also we have established the deer visiting. Also for plantation, we have planted marigolds, flowers, sunflowers, to realize its economic value. The second one is the potato and the cattle. Those two are our pillars in the county. The potato reaches 2.3 billion yuan and the cattle reaches 2.21 billion yuan. Through cooperation plus villages plus farmers, we conduct a dish, a Western dish in Chinese style. It was very popular among the tourists. The last one is sea bog throne, promoted biodiversity, ecological standard, sand control, and rural revitalization, because it can prevent sand and against the wind and sand. Second, it can produce oxygen and natural habitat for other species, providing protection for biodiversity. Lastly, it can reduce 10,000 tons of fruits, more than 700 tons of seeds, and proceed 20 tons of fruit, and gain value above 480 million yuan annually. The cases I have just mentioned is focusing on living, which is the tradition development of eco products. In the future, we would like to explore more to add high-quality eco products and conduct medical materials, forest, fruit, vegetables, and build the country's first full process carbon neutral e-commerce platform to ensure the precise connect between supply and demand. And second is to establish environmental equity market trading mechanism, establishing a regional environmental element trading platform. The third is to implement eco-environmental oriented development, effectively integrate environmental governance project with resources and industrial development project, promote the realization of eco-environmental resource and green industrial economy. The fourth is to innovate the ecological horizontal compensation mechanism, explore the transformation from financial compensation to policy, talent, and technical compensation, and establish a new model of joint cooperation. This is my presentation. Taking this opportunity, I would like to invite you to our county. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Due to the time limit, please be more patient for this session. Welcome to session 3. Best practice of natural capital accounting and green development. Exploring the value realization of eco-product is the strong step of ecological civilization. It's focusing on the two-mountain concept, utilizing natural assets. We have a long way to go. The new theory and tourism and global experience can help us to expand our exploration. Today, we are very glad to have ADB, expert from Nature Capital Project and Sustainable Development of Colombia to describe. The first is to invite Mr. Tercio, Director General ADB, to launch the ADB support to PRC Greening China. She is responsible for Hong Kong, Taipei, and has full experience in strategic planning. Now let's welcome Ms. Yu Li.
Mr. Wang Qina,
of Chinese Academy of Engineering and President of Chinese Academy of Environment Planning, honorable speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to participate in this forum and address all of you today. Let me first thank the government of the People's Republic of China, particularly the Ministry of Ecology and Environment and the city of Kunming for hosting the 15th meeting of the Conference of Parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity, also called as COP15, and its various fora. Over the past few decades, we have witnessed a remarkable development success in the People's Republic of China. Yet, rapid economic growth came with significant impact on the environment. Urban air pollution, deteriorating water quality, and contaminated surface groundwater and soil are few of the challenges. The country's transition to greening development has equally been impressive. Beginning in 2011 with the 12th Five-Year Plan, the government emphasized the greening of infrastructure, as well as piloting green and low-carbon cities. Since then, through concerted efforts, China has continuously promoted comprehensive and innovative green development, evident in the 14th Five-Year Plan. Let me mention some examples of significant initiatives and accomplishments. First, the Yangtze River Economic Belt Development Plan from 2016 to 2030. To achieve big development with big protection, the government formulated the plan which introduced the geographic concept of a belt that encompasses economic, social, and ecological linkages. China pioneered in applying the concept of ecological compensation to protect the environment and livelihoods given competing demands for natural resources. Second, the rural vitalization strategy. Despite the eradication of absolute poverty declared in 2021, the country's rural economy continues to face many challenges. Following the strategy launched in 2017 as a multi-sector approach for integrated and sustainable rural development, the country has been supporting low-income rural populations, addressing regional disparities, and applying a holistic approach to reducing vulnerability. Third, green and livable cities. With much more than 60% of people in China living in urban areas, making cities green and livable has become critical. In recent years, the country has advanced green and inclusive urban development strategies and targets, which marked a shift from emphasizing economic growth to quality-oriented urban development. Fourth, low-carbon development. In response to climate change, China is promoting mechanisms for lowering negative impacts of climate change, such as establishing the carbon market, piloting low-carbon city and community development, and advancing cutting-edge technologies like carbon capture, use, and storage technology. China has taken the lead among developing nations to set up a carbon market through the National Carbon Emissions Trading System. Ladies and gentlemen, throughout this journey, the Asian Development Bank has partnered with China in balancing economic and social progress with environmental sustainability. I am delighted to present at this forum ADB's key publication, Greening Development in the People's Republic of China, a dynamic partnership with the Asian Development Bank. It showcases China's efforts to promote green development and ecological restoration, as well as accomplishments resulting from the partnership with ADB. This publication traces how, over the years, China has adopted valuable experimentation and piloted new tools for advancing green growth, eco-efficiency, protection of nature, pollution control, and use of information technology and digitalization. These tools help build new economic opportunities for businesses contributing to the green economy. China's policies to promote ecological restoration, rural vitalization, and green finance can address environmental protection concerns and regional disparities. ADB's operations in China have gradually evolved towards supporting government efforts to achieve high-quality green development as clearly presented in our new country partnership strategy from 2021 to 2025. ADB stands ready to provide financial, technical, knowledge, and institutional strengthening support through innovative projects generating regional public goods, knowledge, and best practices for replication. As highlighted throughout the publication, the long-standing partnership between ADB and China has contributed to transforming the country's development agenda to focus more on quality and sustainability. China's successful initiatives on environment and development, as well as experiences from our partnership, provide important lessons and replicable practices for ADB and its developing member countries, but also for the global community. ADB is happy to cooperate with China in sharing valuable lessons from this collaborative development joint venture. The COVID-19 pandemic and its negative impacts reminded us of the need for collective action for nature-positive recovery. This can provide opportunities for economic growth, societal well-being, biodiversity conservation, and climate resilience. Recognizing these, our partnership will evolve and deepen further. Amid continuing challenges, ADB and China will harness our collaboration to help shape a future of high-quality green development with economic, social, and environmental benefits. Now, let me show you a video featuring our publication on greening development in the People's Republic of China.
Over the past few decades, the People's Republic of China has made significant progress, eliminating absolute poverty and recording strong economic growth. But some of this progress has come at a heavy cost to the environment. In the last 10 years, the PRC has been promoting comprehensive and innovative green development, supported by the Asian Development Bank.
The PRC's cutting-edge initiatives on integrating its development in the environment provide important lessons and replicable practices, not just for ADB and its developing member countries, but also for the global community.
From 2011 to 2020, 92% of projects financed by ADB in the PRC helped support environmentally sustainable development. A new book describes this partnership.
Our new book showcases how the strong partnership between the PRC and ADB has contributed to promoting ecological restoration and the greening of the country's development agenda.
Joint efforts by the PRC and ADB in designing innovative projects, in introducing new policies, and in strengthening institutional capacities can offer models for other countries to address both national as well as regional environmental challenges.
For example, from 2015 to 2023, ADB is investing about $2.9 billion in green development projects in the Yangtze River Economic Belt.
In the Yangtze River Economic Belt Initiative and the Yellow River Ecological Corridor Program, we're focusing on ecological conservation, integrated transport corridor, transforming industry through high-quality green development, climate change, institutional strengthening, and policy reforms.
ADB also has a long history of working with the PRC in addressing climate change. ADB cooperation with the PRC in recent years includes multi-year support for reducing air pollution in the greater Beijing-Tianjin-Hebei region.
ADB's overall support to the BTH program revolves around strengthening policies, building capacities of institutions, developing custom-fit financing models, and promoting advances in technologies in key sectors and industries.
Other activities have focused on creating green, livable cities, rural vitalization, green finance, emphasizing sustainability and resilience.
ADB and the People's Republic of China will continue to build on past shared experiences to ensure green development for a more sustainable future. Disseminating and replicating successful outcomes will be central to this partnership, bringing promising prospects to Asia and the Pacific as well as beyond.
Thank you, Ms. Lee, and thank you, ADB, for the past 2 and 3 decades for your support and contribution in China's green development. Next, let's welcome Director Ms. Mary Ruckelshaus from Stanford University to talk about the key tools since 2005 on Natural Capital Project. Ms. Ruckelshaus is an expert on marine resource studies. Led by her, she carried out studies on marine and terrestrial ecosystem evaluation models since 2005. We call that non-invest and urban invest, in short, to make contribution to quantifiable evaluation of ecosystem. Thank you and welcome. The floor is yours.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, esteemed guests and speakers from China and the Asian Development Bank. It's an honor to be here. I'd like to just speak very briefly about an exciting time in terms of providing actionable information on ecosystem value that's increasingly requested by decision makers. Diverse leaders in government, banks, and companies are keen to transform the ways natural capital is accounted for in policies and investments. We now have the tools in our hands to transform natural resource policy and investment, thanks to innovative new data technologies and science for valuing ecosystems. Confucius said, "Everything has its beauty, but not everyone sees it." And maps that are created by data and software can help us all see the same beauty, the value of ecosystems that are supporting diverse decisions. So questions such as those presented here, asking where and how much to protect or restore, or how to harmonize regeneration of landscapes and livelihoods to drive green and inclusive economic development. We can also ask, how can we guide and track progress? And where and how many people are affected by our investments or policies? So the Natural Capital Platform has now over 20 separate ecosystem service models in the Invest suite. Some of these models have been applied in China and are shown here in China's National Ecosystem Assessment and Zoning Plan, as Professor Zhenghua mentioned earlier in the meeting today. And the science behind this platform is stronger because we have many network members, many expert science institutions contribute to the information in this platform. More than 50 research partners, including the Chinese Academy of Sciences, Stanford University, the University of Minnesota, Stockholm Resilience Center, and others. Next slide, please. In addition to the science network, this platform is also used and enhanced by more than 300 implementing partners, including we're privileged to be working with the Department of National Planning in Colombia, as shown here in some engagement we've done that Santiago Aparicio will share with us next. So these are possible at national scales, mapping and modeling the values, but also at subnational and regional scales. And then my last slide, please. We're also excited to be mainstreaming these approaches and models and data through multilateral development banks. Is it possible to go to the next slide, please? One last one. Thank you. These multilateral development banks like the Inter-American Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank, World Bank, and others are really helping mainstream these approaches across their member countries, as we've heard about already in this session. So these Invest software tools and data are now used in more than 185 countries around the world. And the first dozen cities are beginning to use these tools. This global viewer that we're now launching is also helping to draw in companies and finance institutions, such as Swiss Re. So what we all care most about is to inspire and inform transformation of decisions. That's what we all want most, so that natural capital values can be mainstreamed in sustainable development. So thank you for including us today, and I look forward to the rest of the speakers in this session.
Thank you for Director Rockoshows for your sharing on the progress and key tools since 2005 and the project. Now, next, let's welcome Director Santiago Aparicio from the Directorate of Environment and Sustainable Development of Colombia. He will talk about international experience in GEP. Director Aparicio focus on environment and sustainable development, have carried out innovative projects. For example, the first accounting project of GEP in Colombia. And let's give the floor to him.
Thank you very much, distinguished guests. Thank you for the invitation. I want to share a brief exposition about Colombian case. My name is Santiago Aparicio. I'm the Director of Environment and Sustainable Development of the National Planning Department of the Government of Colombia. So first, if you help me with the next slide, we are going to talk about three specific themes. One, which are the challenges that we have to address, that seeing the other presentations of the other colleagues, I see that we have some common places on the challenge that we have to address. Second, how we have progressed so far in the efforts of the government to institutionalize the natural capital accounting. And third, to pinpoint some specific next steps that we have identified to really pass from the planification and the good theories to the real action, to really integrating the natural capital accounting into our national system accounting. So please help me with the next slide. Maybe the other one. The next one, please.
好的，谢谢。那首先呢，就是我们需要解决的是什么样的挑战呢？在哥伦比亚呢，我们是世界上生物多样性最丰富的国家之一。我们有这个星球上10%的生物多样性，但是呢，我们的经济体系仍然是大量依赖于化石燃料的，因此呢，我们有此类的挑战以及矛盾。虽然生物多样性非常丰富，但是呢，我们还是并没有完全的发展我们的经济，仍然严重依赖于化石燃料。下一点呢是
are having a high rate of degradation of our biodiversity. We have, just to give an example, like high rates of deforestation, as you see here on the screen on the slide. Deforestation is growing year by year. We have had some good achievements on the recent years, but if you see the tendency on the last decade, we have been increasing the hectares that have been deforested. Next. Obviously, the impacts that this represents is really critical. We also have different motors of degradation that are not only focused on deforestation, but we also have, for example, a lot of losses on wetlands. We also have a lot of affectations on biodiversity of marine ecosystems. Next, so all these challenges specifically lead us to one of the main problems that we have. It's also that we are having affectations on the key resource that is water, that is a vital resource. We have been identifying that we are really good in really doing some conservation efforts, but still we lack a lot of behavioral change that really acknowledge the value of water resources and the value of the ecosystems themselves. So we have identified as one of the great challenges is how we can pass from having the technical information of the value of these resources that we have advanced, and I'm going to talk a bit about that, but how we can also pass so that the general public and the decision makers and the politicians can really understand the value and the dependence we have of the biodiversity. I always mention a phrase, and it's you don't protect what you don't value. So the huge challenge that we have, and it's a challenge, I may call it a challenge of economical, of political economy, is how we began moving the political forces so that they comprehend this value and they act to protect it. Next. So here, seeing some of the key challenges, as I mentioned, we select the water challenge as one of the priority challenges that we have. Next. So specifically, the huge challenge is how we can really sort out how to value natural capital and its ecosystem services, and how to include this specifically on the national accounting system. I'm going to show next a specific case that we make. We have been for the last years advancing next on how we can really move forward in this direction. And we have for the last maybe 10 years been working on a national scale. And finally, 2 years ago, we identified that it was more accurate and more a really more like tangible action to really select a specific area where we can use as a laboratory and run a little pilot, so that then from that specific area and from the barriers we encounter and from the opportunities we encounter and from the learnings we encounter, we can then make an extrapolation so that we can really begin extrapolating this to the national level. So we pass from being 10 years or more trying to create a change from the macro level and passing and having the inability to really understand the problems with the granularity we needed, to begin in the last 2 years when in an alliance with the University of Stanford and IBD to really begin running a specific pilot in a place that is called Golfo Morosquillo. Next, please. Here we began understanding which were the key elements. So first we began constructing the baseline studies for the ecosystem services, making a spatial analysis to really find how we can begin promoting the biodiversity protection and the sustainable growth of the region. Next. We began having confronting a huge challenge of how we can begin showing to the people and the decision takers of the region the value that the ecosystem has. How we can really show them with the specific data that if they lose the biodiversity that is in that specific region, they are going to lose the earnings that are going to come, for example, from tourism, on ecotourism specifically, and the wealth that is going to come with the water. We identified one specific issue about how if they don't protect, and it sounds so simple, but it was a huge work to really achieve explaining this in a simple way. So we began creating the instruments to show them how protecting the upland forests is the key element to really guarantee that they are going to have the water for the present and the next decades. Next. So we have defined as a goal before ending this year that we are going to have some direct talks with the mayors of the municipalities to show them and without a lot of sophistication, but in a really simple language, to show them how the most profitable action that they can take for the region and also for them as politicians is taking care of the natural assets that they have and controlling also the liabilities that are affecting the natural capital. So that's a goal we have. We are going to have the meetings in the next following weeks. And as I mentioned, this is a pilot. So we are tracking every learning we have so that we then can see if we were successful, and if we were successful, then try to extrapolate this on a national level. Next. Next, please. So the next steps that we have seen is how we can, from this small pilot, began having specific instruments that help the municipalities to value their natural capital, control the liabilities that they may have, and began integrating this information into their natural capital system, into their accounting system, sorry. And this is important when you visit some municipalities of Colombia. You see that they have in their accounting system maybe the cars, the buildings, like the traditional assets, but they don't have their main asset. And that's the whole challenge of how we can include these assets into their accounting system, so that they began protecting them. And also, when you include them in the accounting system, immediately they turn into public assets. So a lot of complex regulation comes in, so that we can protect those public assets, so that we don't lose like the common benefits that come from the public assets. Next. So the next course of action, so that we can be short here, it's first we need to develop and implement an ecosystem accounting using the CEA guidelines. Then further the development of ecosystem flux, start measuring with GDP, specifically, at least in some specific regions if possible, and next began standardizing how we can have these accounting efforts like established, so that there can those accounting efforts can be replicated in different municipalities. Next. So finally, I wish to end with one statement, and this is not only a technical problem, and it's important. We have so far advanced in Colombia with rigorous instruments to know the importance of taking care of the natural capital, but we also need to mix here two key elements. One element is the communication element, is how we try to put in simple words complex science, so that the people from the streets and the common citizen can understand it. And second, how we can show the benefits for different sectors, different industries, how we can show the benefits in economical terms, not only showing like in complex words of the environment world, but also putting this information in quantifiable data. So I will finish here, and again, thank you for the invitation, and for our partners for the NatCap from University of Stanford. Thank you.
Thank you, Santiago, for your presentation and sharing on Colombia natural capital accounting experiences and planning policy. Due to the time limit, we would not elaborate on the three reports. Now let's move on to the theme corporate practice and contribution. We all know that on realizing natural capital, enterprises adopt pragmatic practice, cooperating with government and social communities to seek innovation, promote related industrial transition, and achieved a lot of good results. Next, we would invite three experts to conduct panel discussion. They are Mary Rockshills, Stanford University, Li Pengcheng, Executive President of Menil Dairy Group, Vice President of Communication and Public Relations, and Vice President of Ilion Group, Zhao Jingling. Mary will join us online. Thank you very much. Our panel discussion focusing on the essence, experience of your enterprises to share with us. First off, lady first, we would have Miss Mary to share your experiences.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I will be brief because there's a lot of expertise in the room, but I will say that the Natural Capital Project is seeing an explosion of leadership from and interest by companies and financial institutions in moving beyond the concept of biodiversity and natural capital and moving to practical, actionable information on the quantitative values of ecosystems. So they want to move from concept to practice, and they're interested in changing their business decisions. So I will give 4 examples of how NatCap is working with private sector leaders to address diverse questions. And the first is through Unilever in their supply chain procurement decisions. So we have worked with Unilever to take into account impacts on carbon emissions, water quality and quantity, and biodiversity in thinking about where the packaging material comes from for their products. They are interested in thinking about bioplastics, so corn-based plastic materials or sugarcane, and comparing those packaging materials to petroleum-based packaging options. So Unilever is now using a custom software tool that we developed with them to evaluate supply chain sourcing decisions around the company and around the world. A second example is with Caring and Rio Tinto. And Ching Feng from the Asian Development Bank mentioned this Sustainable Kashmir project earlier in this session. And the Natural Capital Project, we worked with that Sustainable Kashmir project in Mongolia to help figure out with the herders, the goat raising communities, how to grow sustainable livelihoods around better quality cashmere wool, but also in the face of climate change, not to degrade the grassland productivity. And Rio Tinto participated in this project because they cared about securing livelihoods for herders that were affected by the footprint of their mine. A third example is with Dow Chemical, and we're now doing a new project with a major technical company that's very similar. And in this case, these companies are interested in nature's role in conferring climate resilience of their factories. So the role of coastal wetlands and forests in protecting the physical plant of companies from sea level rise or flooding in rivers or storms. So there are a host of companies that are interested in risk mitigation and how ecosystems can help that. And then finally, NatCap has been working with several global financial services institutions to evaluate ecosystem risk profiles for portfolios of investment opportunities. So to examine hundreds of investment opportunities in a portfolio sense using cutting edge remote sensing data and modeling. We're building tools that will allow these financial institutions to quickly screen companies and investments to identify the lowest risk returns. So those are just 4 examples I'll share with you, and I look forward to hearing from the other panel members. Thank you.
好，谢谢玛丽女士啊，她这个一口气就给我们。
Thank you, Mary, for sharing 4 cases today. Now let's invite Mr. Li Pengcheng for your comments.
We are a dairy product provider. We are one of the top 10 in the world, and we just made our Mengniu biodiversity report in Kunming and made a comprehensive report on our exploration and effort in biodiversity protection. I'd like to share with you now. First is that we stick to nature conservation and restoration. We understand that with good grass, the cows will produce good quality milk. At the upstream of the sources of milk, we restore and protected the grassland. Since 2011, our distribution companies, our affiliated companies, made an investment of 7.5 billion RMB and planted 97 million trees and turned 2,700 square kilometers of trees of desert into grassland. And in the entire supply chain, we reduced the biodiversity risks. Dairy involves primary industry, secondary industry, and the tertiary industry. And in the entire chain, globally, a large amount of carbon release comes from the pasture husbandry. So scientifically raising the breed and managing the cattle and the stock has scientific significance. We carried out a smart management and treat the feces of the cattle in a very scientific way to create a healthy and a scientific farm with healthy cows to produce quality milk. We also stress on green management. There are 17 green factories in China, and the one in Wuhan is the largest low-temperature factory in Asia, and the water treatment reached zero carbon release. It's a garden-like treatment system. Every afternoon before 3, you will see cranes in visiting, because this type of birds rely on water, quality water. That's an example. We also used transferring boxes to replace paper boxes to reduce our impact on the environment and in this way to protect biodiversity in the entire supply chain. We reached the ESG requirement and standards. We also stick to biodiversity protection to make it public awareness. We serve consumer of 1 billion, and along with our partners and subsidiaries, together we carry out philanthropy public awareness project. Yesterday we made an announcement of Blue Planet campaign along with other pilot stations and sites. We will work with other entities to protect biodiversity. Our vision is to stay with the nature and make a bright future together in harmony with the nature, and make our efforts to safeguard the healthy and the scientific and solid environment of the nature, build a shared future for us all. Thank you for your support. Thank you very much, Mr. Lei. I actually have visited the ecological farms of Mengniu. Cows involves a long process. The methane produced by raising cow is quite significant. What I read about is that the meat cows produce methane converted into carbon would reach 5 billion. That's true that there is one type of equipment to put it on the muzzle as a muzzle, and by wearing that, it can convert the methane into, it's just like a mask to purify the methane. So would it affect the taste of the meat? Okay, that's let's move on to Mr. Zhao from Alien Group. Thank you. I'm from Alien. We are one of the leading companies in the world. I'd like to share with you over the past 3 decades, we worked at the efforts and success achievement we've made on conservation and biodiversity protection. Biodiversity is the foundation for the livability and also supports the economic and social development and other strategic development, as well as serves as guarantee for other strategies. It won't be recovered once it's lost. So we should feel the urgency and the sense of responsibility. Alien, for the past 30 years, have been focusing on desertification. Desertification, Guji Desert is the nearest desert to Beijing. The sand dune is movable. Sandstorm reached 50 times every year, and then with zero vegetation coverage. After 30 years of work, we see restoration. Biodiversity have been protected. In 2017, the UNEP, during the COP10, made an announcement about China's improvement. The alien work on Kupang Desert have made the following numbers progress. Greened 6,000 square kilometers of desert and released air oxygen of 13 million metric tons and protected biodiversity worth of 1.9 billion, and fox and as well as poultries once was lost in that area was returning to that region, and we received, because of that, we received appreciation from the government as well as recognition of the UN. This desert was evaluated as listed by UN as the demonstration desert. And in 2016, it was labeled by China as another demonstration for lucid water protection project as well. So this year, now I would like to share with you what we have done. Previously, people believed that it's not possible to treat desert. We made it, and second, we found a model with the support from the government and the parties, and with the involvement of local people, community, and made it market mechanism based. Effectively joined the effort of 4 parties to ensure industrial development and environment protection. Third is we made technological advancement and innovation. We created a technology which can help us to plant a tree in the desert within just 10 seconds, and 90% out of 9 out of 10 times, the tree will grow healthily. And we have a robot that combined the 5G technology and the Beidou navigation and autopiloting technology. Once you input the data, it will navigate and drive automatically in the desert to plant trees. It helped to reduce the cost of planting and made the planting standardized. Fourth is the industrialization. we combine the tourism and photovoltaic and technology together. And to raise cows and sheep under the photovoltaic panel. So it generated a double result. We also made 3 parts of our efforts in protection. First, we established the germplasm bank in the northwest with a collection of endangered animals and species and plantations into that germplasm bank. We also established a protection park, serves as a center for youngsters to understand the importance of biodiversity. And we also protected over 1,000 species around that Kubchi desert. And we systematically established a mechanism to turn desert into grassland, to bushes, to trees, to wood, to woodland. So Ilium have made some contribution to the environmental protection and biodiversity protection in Xinjiang Basin and in technology in Qinghai Plateau. You might notice that there is no tree for birds to make nest in that area. They could only proliferate and live in the bushes. When we plant trees in that area, the birds found their nest back to the trees. Return respect to the birds. We also promoted our technology and findings in Uzbekistan and helped them to treat the Salt Sea, and in Saudi Arabia to plant trees to help them to reach their goal of 2030, made our Chinese contribution. Lastly, I just would like to say that these technologies, hopefully they could be adopted and utilized in other countries and the regions, make our efforts in reaching the shared future for all mankind. Thank you, Mr. Zhao, for sharing your achievement and effort on the Kubchi Desert by simply from ecological treatment to making it an example of ecological product value realization. We have heard sharing from three speakers, the successful examples and the sharing. Due to time limit, I will conclude this session here, and thank you very much. We are approaching the end of this session. We will make a concluding speech. First, let's proudly welcome the Deputy Executive Secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity, Mr. David Cooper. Let's welcome him.
Thank you very much, Professor Wang. I think this has been a very exciting session. And as we develop the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework and prepare for its implementation, I think it's also been a very encouraging session. The work carried out here in China on natural capital accounting and gross ecosystem product and all these related concepts is truly impressive. both the fundamental work that's being carried out by various universities, the Chinese Academy of Sciences, the Chinese Academy of Environmental Planning, and others, but also the applications in pilots at the municipal and provincial levels by municipal and provincial governments, as well as the support and promotion nationally by the Ministry of Ecology and Environment, and the NRDC, and others. And it's also exciting that we've seen some of the lessons here in China being applied also in other countries and by companies around the world as well. I also want to pay tribute to the collaboration between the Chinese actors with the Natural Capital Project that's been instrumental for many years in driving forward this work, with the UN, with the multilateral development banks, and we've heard some very good examples from all of these today. I say it's encouraging as we develop the post-2020 framework, because I think the work we've heard about today, the tools that have been developed and piloted, will help us in operationalizing many of the goals and the targets that we have in the draft framework. It will help us guide, for example, the spatial planning that is going to be so important, and we heard some examples of how that's been done in China, in Colombia, among other places. It's long been identified that a real key to moving towards sustainability is to integrate the values of biodiversity and ecosystem services into policies, to guide regulations, to guide incentives. And the work we've heard about today will help us do that. So this is reflected in Target 14 in the draft framework. It will also guide us in redirecting subsidies, reflected in Target 18 of the framework. And we've heard examples again of how this is happening on the ground. And of course, most obviously, the work we've heard about will help us in assessing progress towards one of the key goals of the new framework, and that is on looking at how we are successful or not in valuing, maintaining, and enhancing nature's contributions to people. Of course, as we go forward, there will continue to be challenges. Nature and its contributions to people are valued in different ways, at different scales and by different stakeholders and different people. And it's often difficult to compare the multiple values that reflect, for example, different worldviews. As we scale up from local to national to global and need standardized approaches at these broader scales, we have to be careful that we don't lose the distinct values that are important for local people at local scales. So as we move forward, we'll need to continue our efforts to reflect these multiple values, the values of different peoples at different communities, to recognize and respect traditional and local knowledge, and to be sure that the values of indigenous peoples and local communities are respected. Such an approach will help us build a future that is truly a shared future for all life on Earth. Congratulations to all the presenters today, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper, for your summary, quite comprehensive. I believe all of the audience and the participants at present also learn a lot from his summary. I actually counted while I was sitting there. There are 26 participants participated in the keynote speech and the discussion and the sessions. 11 of them joined us online. And I found that the online model is actually quite effective. It saved the cost on international travel. At the same time, also reduced the carbon footprint of international travel. So COP15 asked us to reach carbon neutralization, and one of our colleagues was here to make a plan for COP15 on carbon neutralization. So the 11 speakers joined online made your contribution, and your effort is quite relevant to the theme, made your contribution to carbon neutralization. Thank you. Lastly, but not least, on behalf of the organizers, to the Secretariat of CBD and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Science, Ministry of Environment Planning, Ministry of Environment, Ecological and Environment Protection, and the Committee and the Bureau of Foreign Affairs in Yunnan, I'd like to extend my gratitude, especially for the RCES and the CAEP for providing this platform for our discussion. As we all know, natural capital accounting and ecological product value realization is a new subject. On one hand, accounting has to be first carried out as the basis for product value realization. A lot of experiences from the international level focus on the capital accounting. What we would like to see more is on the ecological product value realization. This is the ultimate goal of our job. As we all know, the economy is quite complicated. It has been under tremendous changes, and the pandemic is still hovering. Under the circumstances, we need to work together, strengthen our partnership, join hands to move forward. Going forward, we will follow the spirit of COP15, especially the Kunming Declaration, to continue to work closely with our partners and a shared accountability and responsibility to build a future and organize and establish other events and forums to help and make our contribution to green development and ecological civilization, and to provide more opportunities of discussion in this course. Just take this opportunity as an organizer, taking our Chinese Academy of Environment Planning. This year marks our 20-year anniversary to promote biodiversity protection and in natural capital accounting. In July, we have been working with Chinese Academy of Science and Tsinghua University, establish a joint laboratory for ecological production and natural capital. For this, to support government decision-making in this area. On the front of promoting policy formulation on biodiversity protection, when the COP15 is ongoing, we established our Biodiversity and Natural Protected Area Research Center. With these facilities, we would like to continue to work with you on the discussion and study of capital accounting and value realization, which would provide and support building a shared future for humanity. Lastly, I just would like to take this an opportunity to announce that our subforum shall conclude. Lastly, I would like to wish you good stay and a happy trip in Beijing, in China, in Kunming, and all the best to you and your family. Thank you very much for your support.
对吗？没事了，没有了，谢谢。